Another method for creating color is using the color picker. This lets you select a color in a color field or spectrum either by defining them numerically or clicking on a swatch. This color picker you're familiar with from Photoshop as well, and InDesign works the same way. So the next thing we're going to do is create a color using the color picker and then save that as a swatch. So with our selection tool, we're going to click to select the blue guitar shape. And then instead of using any swatch panels over here, we're going to come to our toolbar and come down to the bottom where we have our fill and stroke. And this is our color picker. So we're going to double click on the fill box, and that's going to bring up something that's very familiar to what you've seen in Photoshop. So the larger color field, this big one here, shows the saturation and brightness of whatever color is selected. The color spectrum bar, this one over here on the right, shows the different hues. So as we drag up and down through the different hues, wherever we stop, we see the different saturations and brightness over here to the left. We're going to drag our color field and we're going to end up somewhere in an orange color for now, and it doesn't matter exactly where. But once we pick that color of orange, if we go up and down over here, we can see that we're changing the brightness. And if we go left to right, we're changing the saturation. So no saturation to 100% saturation of that original color chip that we selected. All right, we have an option now to select totally by color, or we can dial in our exact color choices. Since this is a print document, we're going to again deal with CMYK. So we're going to enter 8 for cyan, 50 for magenta, sorry, 100% yellow, and 0% black. And that's the version of orange that we're going for. When we click OK, that color should have been applied to the fill of the shape, and it wasn't. That's interesting. Oh, I must not have had it selected. I didn't. Hopefully you had it selected when you were doing that. I'll go back and redo this quickly, but I'll just type in the coordinates here. 8, 50, 100, 0. Okay, there we go. I thought I had that piece selected, but I must have clicked off it at some point. So our color chip is the color we just told it to be based on CMYK coordinates, and it did apply to this piece because it was selected. All right, now we're going to come over to our appearance panel, properties panel, appearance, and we're going to click on our fill to open our swatch panel. And this is the color that we just made. We need to make a new swatch of it. So we're going to come down to the plus sign to make a new swatch. And there's our numerical coordinates, but we're going to give it a name, burnt orange. And it is going to be global color, and we don't need to add it to our library. So that's the actual name instead of seeing our CMYK numbers. And we're going to say OK, and then click away to deselect. So that was creating a new color using the color picker, and then coming to our swatches panel and adding it as a new swatch. Something pretty cool in Illustrator are the different swatch libraries that are built into Illustrator. And these libraries are collections of preset colors such as Pantone and Toyo. We've talked about the Pantone colors in other classes, and we have the swatches in the classroom. And in addition to having Pantone and Toyo swatches, they also have thematic libraries like earth tones or ice cream colors. So when you open them, you're going to get a floating panel, and when you actually apply one to your document, it is the only color that goes from that entire library. Only the ones that you apply are added to your swatches. Additionally, that new color swatch is only saved in this document. It's not permanently saved in your color options. So we're going to create a spot color using a Pantone Plus library. So spot colors, or Pantone is what we're going to be using, are exact color matches. Printers know that when you're using a Pantone color of a certain number, they know exactly what ink to use, and it's a fifth ink, a fifth plate on the printing press. CMYK can blend together to make many, many colors, but if you want to guarantee the color of something, you might run an extra plate on the press and apply just that one color. An example would be a company that insists on having the exact color of their company logo, but they're also running photographs on that same page. So CMYK is going to cover everything, but to ensure that they get, let's say, the John Deere green, the Pantone color that they need it to be, they will run a spot color. So let's go up to our window, and we're going to come down to Swatch Libraries, way down here. And you can see that we have different, like I said, thematic. So we have art history colors, maybe the Renaissance color palette, celebration color books, this is where we're going to be going, but earth tones, foods, metals, nature, all sorts of awesome things built in here. We specifically are going to go to the color books, and we're going to choose Pantone, and specifically the Pantone Solid Coated. And this is for coated paper. You're always thinking about what your end product is going to be, so coated paper has a little bit of that glossy shine to it, like a magazine or maybe even the book, whereas uncoated is more of a porous paper. So we're going to work in the Pantone Solid Coated family, and when we click on that, we get a swatch panel, and it's huge, so keep pulling until you're done. These are all of the swatches, and if you were to choose this one, for example, Pantone 7483, the C stands for the fact that it's coated, it's the coated family, you would be guaranteed to get that exact color if you look at the color swatches, not on your screen but in the actual color books, you would be guaranteed to get that exact color. So again, companies that have a very specific Pantone color for their brand will use this system. So how on earth do we find something in here? Well, the crazy thing is we come up to this search bar, and if you actually have the swatch books, you already know a number. So I'm going to type in 137, and that's going to bring up just two options, Pantone 137C and 1375C. So those are two different options that fit the search criteria. We're going to click the swatch for 137C, this one, and that actually added it to our swatches panel in this document, which we'll see in just a second. We can close this window, and then if we just go look at our regular swatches, we will see this right here. There is our Pantone 137C that we just added by single clicking on it. Also note that it's global, it's got that white corner, but it also has a dot right there. That means that it's a spot color. You can't create that mixing CMYK. That's its own color of ink that you put on a fifth plate on the printing press. And you probably guessed it, that costs more money. So you use spot colors very, I don't know if sparingly is the right word, but you have to have a good reason for them. It's not just because you like that color green. You probably can achieve very close to that using CMYK, but if it's very specific, if it's brand centric, then you use spot colors. All right, let's choose our second artboard, the one that happens to be called Pantone. And if it's not fitting in the window, you're going to want to somehow get it to fit in the window. I'm just going to move that out of the way. Actually, we can close this. We've seen that it showed up. Another kind of warning is when you're looking at all those different color swatches, if you start clicking on a bunch thinking that you're going to see a preview, every time you click on one, it's going to be added to your swatches for this document. So don't do that. Okay. Let's use our selection tool and click on the large light gray guitar shape. Come over to our fill box in the appearance. Come on, computer. And we're going to apply this spot color. So this Pantone 137C. And we're going to deselect and stop because we've saved that right there. I wanted to show you the Pantone website in case you are not familiar with this. We do have these in the Mac Lab. These fan guides, they actually fan out so you see all the colors, kind of like you can see it's fanned out over here. These show you the different chips, and we have them for coated and uncoated. We have a bridge, we have like 6 of these. The color bridge is kind of interesting because this one provides a side-by-side visual comparison of a Pantone spot color and their closest CMYK printing match. It'll also show you their closest RGB. So if it's, I keep saying John Deere green, but we know that's a very specific green, it would show you that chip, and next to it, it would show you what it would look like in CMYK, the closest that could be achieved, and the closest web version RGB. So these Pantone color books look like this. Pantone is everywhere. They dictate fashion trends. There's a Pantone color of the year. There's everything imaginable with Pantone. And if you haven't gone to this website and looked around, I encourage you to do this because look at all these cool things. Why do you need to know about color? Psychology, trend forecasting. I'm a graphic designer. Maybe this is going to help you understand what some of the tools you should have. So here is the solid coated metallics color book. So if you want a metallic ink, they have chip books, which are larger chunks of this color that you can give to your clients, something more like this, where they can actually see the color in a larger form. Here's a super swatch of a color. So Pantone is the industry standard for color. There's others like Toyo, but in the US, North America, Pantone is king. So let's go back to our document, and we've added this Pantone color. Another thing that we can do with our Pantone colors is we can create and save a tint of this color. So a tint is when we mix white with it to make it lighter. So on that saturation, we're kind of going from no saturation, white, all the way over to 100% saturation, which is the full version of the color that you see. All right, with our selection tool, we're going to select the 2 darker gray shapes. So this one, and then shift, and this one. So we have those 2 different shapes. They're both filled with this darker gray. We're going to click on the fill box over here, and we're going to fill it with this Pantone 137C. So that's the exact same color as the guitar body. Now we're going to come up to this color mixer that we've seen before. We're going to click on that, and instead of having CMYK coordinates, because this is not CMYK, this is Pantone, all we can do is create a tint with this. So we see the letter T. 100% is the full color, and then we can back it off and add more white to it. As we go back, we see our preview. All right, we're going to change the tint slider. We're going to drag it to 70%, or just type in that number. So a 70% tint of this Pantone color will give us this color. From here, we're going to go back to the swatch panel, and we're going to add this new swatch. So we need to come down here and click on the add. And notice this was added for us and we had no chance to name it. Cool thing is we don't need to. It does it for us. This is Pantone 137C, whoops, at a 70% tint. That was automatically added to the name. We can click to deselect, and we will move on to our next videos.